Hi everybody, thank you so much for coming by and wanting to answer that burning question that you have about what a sourdough starter is and how to go about making one if you're a beginner bread baker. The process to create the starter is you're going to take water and flour, mix it together, just let it sit in all night until the next day. You're going to do that for a couple days, and then you're going to begin to do it twice a day, morning and at night, only for a few days. You will begin to see bubbles inside of the mixture, which means that there's fermentation that has occurred. The yeast is growing, it's very happy, and those bubbles are what is going to cause your bread to rise. The beauty of having a sourdough starter is that when you want to make bread anytime, you have your sourdough starter with that natural fermentation inside, that natural prebiotic to offer your family in the different recipes that you'll either bake or cook, and it's always with you. You have it in your home. When making bread, you don't have to go and make sure that you have yeast in your cupboard that hasn't expired. You don't have to go purchase anything. It's always homemade, happy, growing right in your very own kitchen. And us sourdough bread bakers, we most often fondly name our precious starters. And so I would like to introduce to you, this is Stella. My grandmother's name was Stella, so it's very near and dear to me. Back in November, I began Stella. I started my starter, and I honestly forget where I got this little recipe from. On day 0, today, you're going to take 1 cup of flour and a half a cup of water. And you're going to stir that together in a glass container, preferably. I really prefer not to use plastic. You're not going to have anything leach in to the starter. Day 1 today, 1 cup of flour to a half a cup of water. Let's do that. Start with all-purpose flour. I believe you can do it with, if you want to use just bread flour, that's fine too. And you're going to pour that into whatever container you choose to use. Next, a half a cup of warm filtered water, 100 degrees. And it doesn't have to be precise. It's very forgiving. So I prefer to use wooden spoon instead of plastic spatulas. So give it a good stir, get it nice and combined. Stir it all up so that you don't see any of the flour inside, that it's completely mixed. All right, so it's going to be pretty gummy. You can see in there. Okay. And what's good about the glass containers too is you can see inside. I see there's some, excuse me, there's some flour that I didn't get mixed in. All right. There you go. You have started your sourdough starter. It's that easy. We're going to wet a tea towel, a dishcloth, something of that nature, a clean one. Wet it, lay it over top. And even though I live in Florida and it's fairly warm in here, but it's just spring, it's about 73 or so, I have found that putting my starter into the oven with the light on, I have 2 lights in my oven, so I only put the light on for about 30 minutes and then cut it. And then I'm gonna let the starter sit in my oven for overnight. Day 1 through day 4, you're going to do a very simple process, very similar to today. You're going to empty out half of what is inside this jar into the trash can. I know it seems wasteful, but it's only for these first few days, just to get that healthy yeast growing inside of your jar. And they say you shouldn't eat it. You shouldn't bake with whatever you're throwing away or whatever you're discarding. And you'll want to get used to that term. You'll hear discard constantly. Sourdough discard. You can use it for this. You can use it for that. Yes, you can use sourdough discard in recipes. You just can't use sourdough to discard when you're first starting out building your starter, getting your starter healthy and mature in order to use in recipes. Right now, it's not viable, and it's actually producing unhealthy bacteria at the moment until it establishes itself. So you don't want to eat or bake with what you're throwing away, but it's just very temporary. Trust me, this will be giving back to you for years and years to come, and other potential family members too that you want to pass your sourdough starter down to. For the next 4 days, starting tomorrow, you're going to throw half into the trash, and then you're going to add another cup of flour and another half cup of water. Stir that all up and do the same thing. Put the light on in your oven, cover it with a freshly wet towel, and for 4 days you're going to do this process. It's going to be in your oven or in a dark place for 24 hours until you refresh it the next day. And do me a favor, by the way, when you have it in the oven, please do me a favor. Put a sticky note or some sort of a note on your oven. My poor sister, she was struggling to get her starter going. Excuse me. And I was helping her, getting her going with it. And she finally got it going. She felt so good. And she was going to bake with it for her first time that night, after weeks of trying to get this thing going, right? But it just has to do with whatever was going in the climate in her area and in her home. And it was finally coming about, and the poor thing, she had it in the oven. She didn't have a note on the door, and her husband turned the oven on because he was going to put dinner in the oven. And he started smelling something terrible, and he looked in there and he saw her starter just was a mess. And honestly, I couldn't believe it. My husband and I were just, because she had tried so hard, and she was there right on the doorstep of having her starter all set, ready to go. And her husband put the oven on. So make sure you have, if you do keep it in your oven, and the oven is not on, it's only just to keep it warm because you had the light on for a little while. Anyway, make sure to have a note on the oven door. Day 5 through 7, you're going to do the same process, but this time it's going to be in the morning and at night. So you're going to be refreshing your starter more frequently. You will be seeing bubbles forming on the top. It's super exciting. That means the fermentation is happening. The yeast from the air is also coming into your starter, and it's all getting activated and happy. And when you start to see a lot of bubbles on top, and then you'll also see bubbles along the sides from the side of your starter, then you can start baking. When you start to bake right away with a very young starter, don't be surprised that your bread may not rise as nicely as you would like. It might be a little bit more on the gummy side, and that's okay. Every time you feed your starter's getting healthier and healthier. Sometimes because of where you live, it may not produce those bubbles as quickly. It might take 2 weeks. It might take 3 weeks. It might take 4 weeks. Some locations where it's warmer, maybe there's more moisture in the air, you might find that your starter is bubbling up after day 4. But I would continue to follow the process. As I like to say, stay the course. Days 1 through 4, feed it every 24 hours. Days 5, 6, and 7, you want to feed it twice a day and go through that whole the discard feeding process. After day 7, feed it once a day. You could still do the method of putting it in the oven to keep that goodness, that warmth, that growth going. And I'd say somewhere around the 2-week mark or so, you can put it in the fridge. I didn't know any better, and honestly, my starter sat on the counter for 6 weeks. It didn't touch the refrigerator. And I was baking with it and doing all kinds of things, but then my daughter's boyfriend took the lid off and he smelled and he's like, wow, I smell apples in there. And I took a good smell. I'm like, wow, he's right. I smell apples too. But it was fermenting so much. And I thought, maybe that's not a good thing. Honestly, I don't know. I'm starting out brand new. What did I know? But my instinct told me, you know, maybe I should start putting it in the refrigerator. So I transferred my starter into a fresh glass jar and started keeping it in the fridge in between my baking. And then I did further research and I realized, yes, that was the thing to do. So, you know, a certain amount of this, it's just instinct, and follow your instinct. And then also come here, send me a comment here on this video. If you have any questions at all, I would absolutely love to help you out with getting the sourdough starter going. And also to hear your comments about in time, how much it's changing your life. I also want to know what you're naming your starter. That's so much fun. And if you even choose to name your starter. So it has been such a joy for me. I can't begin to tell you. It is giving us nutrition in our breads. I haven't bought anything from the store now since November, since I started baking bread-wise. Even crackers, I'm making my own homemade crackers. I am making cinnamon buns. I'm making dinner rolls. Comment below, please, if you're naming your starter and what you're gonna name it. Tell me what you hope to do, what you hope to make with it. Please let me know if this video helped you at all. I just want to bring such goodness and health and happiness to you and your family. And if it brings you just the smallest amount of what it's done for me and fulfilled me in so many ways, then I will be so very, very happy. If you found this information helpful, click that little thumbs up button, or if this video has helped you and you want to subscribe, that would be amazing for me. And I would love to have you on this journey with me. As I'm learning, we can learn together. And it's just a wonderful community to be a part of. So thank you for spending this time with me. And I hope you have an awesome day. And I will see you next time.